Hey, Pat,
yes,
sorry, before you push play on this, I just want to
yeah,
put this in people's minds.
okay.
What if Luxon's egregious Marmite conversation that has dominated the news cycle today is a dead cat tactic for this story?
Hmm. Okay. There's a very good rundown at the start of the story with Simon Dallow talking to the timeline so far of the iRex. We
Mhm.
found out today that the government has set aside 300 million for the break fee. Now, remember, it's a bit hard here to figure out exactly how much the ferries were going to cost because they've included the costs of the wharves in that. But originally, Chewie, I think the ferries were about 700 million. So if that's still the accurate number as to what they were at the end, that means they're basically paying for half of the ferry cost to break all the contracts, although the contracts are including breaking ones with the people making the wharfs. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to break those contracts with the wharf, the people who are building the wharfs. They're going to take their 50 million out of that, and then the government's going to employ them to build new wharves for the new ferries. It's a bit like when a government lets go of a whole bunch of staff, they get their severance pay, they get their holiday pay, they get a big lump sum, and then they come back as a contractor and they charge them twice as much. That'll be what happens next. So let's get to the story tonight about where we are with the break fee in iRex and where we are with the ferries full stop.
Newly released documents show the government put aside $300 million to cover the break fees for all the abandoned mega ferry project. Just the latest revelation in the long-running saga.
Not mega ferries.
In 2018, the plans put forward for 2 large rail-enabled ferries with an estimated cost of $775 million. Costs keep rising. By June 2021, up to $1.4 billion, mainly on planned infrastructure.
That word mainly is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Because if they say mainly, that means sort of the majority. Because you don't go like, well, I went out for dinner tonight. Mainly most of the cost was in beer. If you only spend $1 on beer and $20 on the actual meal, mainly implies that's the biggest chunk of the pie, which is not costs going to Hyundai. It's local infrastructure.
The actual ships. Later that month, Kiwi Rail signs a fixed price contract with South Korean company Hyundai Mipo for 2 mega ferries at a price of $551 million.
So the ferries have a fixed price. Signed a contract, fixed price, $500 million.
This is why everybody said it was such a good deal.
Yep. Break fee, $300 million. 2 ferries, $551 million. Break fee, $300 million. Now, yes, it does include the infrastructure, but remember, we have builders and labourers and hammer hands and all these people fleeing this country at the moment because the government is cancelling Kainga orders, cancelling all their building, and things like the infrastructure in the ports is being cancelled as well. So, yeah, would have cost more to get the wharves done as well. But you would have got those people through this current economic downturn and they'd be here in 2 years to keep working, which they won't be now. Wouldn't surprise me. It's very funny. It wouldn't surprise me if they struggle to find a company or a group to actually build the new wharves that they're going to need because they've all left. Last one out of New Zealand turned the lights off. Remember that? That was Muldoon, I think, from memory. All right, we'll keep going.
But by February 2023, the project costs escalate significantly to $2.6 billion. In November, the incoming government's advised of a further increase to $3 billion. The government ditches the iRex project.
So that implies it's $2.5 billion on infrastructure and half a billion on ferries because there was a fixed price. So that means the wharves, the infrastructure to house the ferries, all of that, $2.5 billion. I think we could probably look up some roading infrastructure that's around the $3 billion cost at the moment that this government happily signed on to. But the infrastructure for the ferries,
$64 billion.
Yeah. But $2.5 billion for the state highway one that is the Cook Strait, not worth $2.5 billion to build that infrastructure.
A month later, in the new year, a ministerial advisory group's established to provide advice on the ferries. 4 months later, it reports back to the government recommending 2 medium-sized roll-on, roll-off ferries. Its findings weren't released publicly. And in December, it's back to the drawing board. Winston Peters is named Minister for Rail.
So just remember, back to the drawing board means we're back at the start. So since 2018, 6 years later, because of these guys, we're back at the start. I don't know about you, but everything I've heard about building and building costs has gone up exponentially since 6 years ago. So how they think they're going to get a cheaper deal for a worse product these days, I have no idea.
Neither do they, Pat.
Yeah.
Neither do they.
I guess
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
The new company to be set up to deliver the ferries. Here's Jessica Roden with the latest.
When the mega ferries were axed, the plan ahead sounded simple.
The Ferrari is not the only car in the garage. Let's look and see if we can get some better value options.
What's really important with this, and we obviously, hauled National over the coals for this, but listening to it again now, let's look and see if we can get some better value. Important. Let's look and see. Let's look and see means we don't have a plan. Again, let's look and see means we don't have a replacement plan. Just confirming it on day one.
Let's look and see if we can get some better value options. The Toyota.
Let's look and see.
We can't.
Yeah, and that's the question, Chewie. What if we can't? Looks like we can't.
We're fucked.
We can't.
Kayaks
Corolla
for everyone.
option, the reliable option.
Cabinet brought in experts, and today their advice was finally released. The Ministerial Advisory Group initially suggested last February that Kiwi Rail try to renegotiate the contract with Hyundai to get them to build smaller ships that weren't rail-enabled. The Finance Minister says that didn't work out.
When we then tried to pursue that, the option that came back was very expensive.
What? Okay. Why do you think it was expensive, Nikki No Boats? By the way, bhnshop.nz, I would like to see an uptick on Nikki No Boats merch tonight, because 6 years after the original quote and locking in a price of building has gone through the roof. Price of infrastructure has gone through the roof. Price of labor has gone through the roof. So yes, it was very expensive. Probably what you're not telling us is that it was going to cost you more than the bigger ferries, because that was a good deal, $500 million for those two. You might be paying $500 million, $750 million now for two smaller ones, and it's because the price of everything has gone through the roof, Chewie.
What I would like to know, and what is not mentioned in that piece of camera by Nicola there, is before we got the new price and worked out that it was too expensive, how long did it take for the people at Hyundai to stop laughing? Like, was it 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Did you have to break for lunch? They were just talking and just laughing at the fact that we cancelled a ridiculously good deal via text on a whim because it was done by Team Red, and you didn't like that, and you had no other plan. We've had almost 2 years, and the best option is to go back to the people that you fucked around and said, hey, you gave us a good deal last time for big boats. You're going to give us a great deal for smaller boats, right? And then the laughing, the never-ending laughing, and the scary number put forward. Because you fucked someone around. You fucked one of the world's best shipyards that is not exactly going begging for work. You fucked them around because you wanted to be Billy Big Balls. I'm better than Labour.
But it's even if Hyundai, I agree with you, Hyundai might have got all vindictive, of course. But even if they didn't, and so now for $500 million, well, you can have one ferry at today's prices, or we can build you two ferries that are about 2/3 the size, but it's going to cost you twice as much because that's today's prices. The cheapest time to build something was yesterday, right? The cheapest time to build anything is yesterday. Tomorrow's more expensive than today. Now, when you start talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and an 8 to 10 year gap, what the fuck do you expect? Let's keep going.
$300 million has been put aside to deal with the repercussions of breaking that contract.
The break fee is not just for the ferries, it's for the infrastructure that's being built around it as well. So it's much less.
Which we'll still have to build even for smaller ones. We know that already. That's still going to be a cost.
Than you say.
But Minister Peters did meet with Hyundai in South Korea last week and seems optimistic a new deal could be on the cards.
We had a very frank discussion. We know.
I wonder if that frank discussion started with, guys, I know my colleagues are fucking idiots and they've made a mistake. Can we just agree that the guys I've come away from in New Zealand are morons? Can we start there? I acknowledge that. Now, please, can you give me a break so at least I can go back and hold my head up high? If it didn't start like that, I don't imagine much is going to happen. I don't imagine.
That they are seriously interested.
It's another humiliation for Nicola Willis. She shouldn't have rushed and cancelled the new inter-island ferry contract before figuring out what the government was going to do instead.
The advisory group also said second-hand ships are not an option. It recommended a contract for new ferries be signed by last October at the latest. A new company should be set up and eventually run the inter-islander service.
We screamed past that by last October. We're now in March, October, November, December, January, February. So they should have had it done by 6 months ago, almost to the day.
This is going very well.
Rather than Kiwi Rail. And the only way the Crown can reduce the safety and reliability issues currently is by replacing the ferries ASAP.
Meaning the current ferries are no longer fit for purpose and need to be gone.
Received the last of these independent reports in June, and while they have been publicly released today, large sections have been redacted. For example, the companies other than Hyundai which have been contacted about building the new ships have been withheld. One thing is clear, the advisors recommended roll-on, roll-off ferries. Rail freight can be lifted onto them, but trains can't drive on.
Now remember what that means as well for the South Island is the South Island cannot receive rail anymore. Now when I say rail, I mean the rails. Only trains can carry the rails that make the rails that the trains run on. So if we don't have a roll-on, roll-off, then they have to actually invent a whole new way, which should go into the costings, right? Because that's a part of it, of how the South Island will get delivered its rail, the things we need for rail, because you won't be able to do it on the ferry anymore. So however that now has to happen, whether it's by getting on boats and bringing them around or having a purpose-built boat now, that has to be included in the costings of these new ferries we're going to get.
That's almost a red herring. We think the bigger issue is the risk of reducing the number of vessels from Inter-Islander's current 3 vessels down to 2.
Minister Peters, though, is a long-time advocate for rail-enabled ferries.
I told you we're looking at every option, not just what I inherited.
He says hold fire, he'll have more to say.
I wonder if he means inherited from Labor or inherited from Nikki. I'm assuming he means probably inherited from both with equal disdain from Mr. Peters.
Soon.
You were promised the framework for the future deal by the end of March. Yes, you'll get the information that you need.
What the country really needs, some new ferries, and it's still not clear when that'll happen. Jessica Roden, One News.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, and as I said that, I wonder if Winston's disdain was equally placed between Labor and Nikki No Boats. I don't mean Labor deserved it. Labor got a freaking awesome deal, and but you know, Winston being Winston, Caleb says 2021 was when ships were being sunk as they were too expensive to maintain with COVID. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity for discounted ships. Chewie, your thoughts, man?
Oh, I've got so many thoughts. We knew that this was coming. We have been correct on this all the way through. Everybody that we have spoken to about it has been correct all the way through. Bear in mind, people, we would have been getting the first iRex ferry January of next year. The second one, October of next year. That's what they've flushed. Anything that happens between now and whatever half-assed ferry we end up getting is on Nicola. Solely on Nicola. I think if Simon Dello is going to sit there and call the iRex ferries mega ferries every opportunity he gets, the whatever ferries we get need to be called the half-assed ferries. because the iRex weren't mega ferries. They were just bigger because in 30 plus years, New Zealand has got bigger. We handle more freight, we have more population. Getting bigger ferries was appropriate because you are trying to factor in the growth as well. If we get ferries that are only marginally bigger than what we've got now, then we are locking in the decisions made 30 years ago for another 30 years. 60 years of no growth? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And over that span, like when they're saying, hey, look, the costs have ballooned. Yeah, they did for lots of like obvious reasons. It wasn't people building mansions with it. It was just that costs went up. But when you're talking about port and freight handling facilities, and you were building them for climate change and earthquake disaster resilience, that is 100-year infrastructure, or let's be real cautious, 50-year infrastructure. So who cares if it goes up $1 billion if you're spreading the cost out over 50 years? It's like having a house with a leaking roof. Like, it doesn't matter if the costs go up, you need to do it. Your roof is leaking. And if you don't do it, the leak gets worse and it damages more things and it's going to cost more anyway. Just do it. This was such a political hack job decision made from a knee jerk with no backup plan. And we've had almost 2 years of dicking around. Like, these guys should be crucified for this level of just sheer bloody-minded incompetence in the face of all expert opinion, all advice, and dare I say it, common fucking sense. This is a debacle that is going to be baked into our infrastructure for the next 30, 40 years.
100. And still, when we get those, it'll be under hopefully a different government. When some of those little baby ships finally get delivered, we gotta have the public be able to vote on the names of them, like the famous Boaty McBoatface. Because I'm still thinking about the Christopher Luxon and the Nicky No boats, because every time you're on that ferry being tossed about in that strait because they're not fit for purpose like the other ones would have been. You want to remember who put you on them. Just think about us, Chewie. If we get to go to Waitangi next year, if we do the same thing as we did this year, we could have been literally on that ferry going across the strait, singing the praises of this government for nailing it down and getting it finished off, the one that the Labor guy started. But oh no! In fact, I think they're going to be down a ferry. Is it the end of this year or the end of next year? One of the ferries is no longer going to be operational.
Like, it's just so incompetent. Like the double and triple handling on freight. Like, if they were both roll on, roll off, like the trains would just go on, no worries at all. You're not handling that stock. The fact that we're going down to 2 boats isn't as much as an issue because of the turnaround of loading the ship up and sending it off again. When we spoke to someone from the Maritime Union, and they were saying, well, look, like having to double handle that freight adds 3 hours onto the turnaround. So the fact that we're going down from 3 ferries to 2 and adding 3 hours to loading it on each side of the journey, none of this is good. There isn't an upside here. I don't understand why this is allowed to happen. It is so incompetent.
Chewie, though, you've forgotten something, man. You know, the government's going to change the speed limits around schools. So that's going to change. What was the number? Something like two minutes and 40 seconds between Auckland and Wellington. So, you know, it'll probably equal out to be the same. Sure.
Like changing those speed limits was going to unlock the true productivity potential of our entire country, but absolutely chopping the South Island off at its knees, certainly that shouldn't have any major effect.